The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Would Curt Cignetti actually leave Indiana for Penn State?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
James Franklin is out at Penn State, and the top candidate seems to be Curt Cignetti from the Indiana Hoosiers. But people are asking, Zach, what are the possibilities of this happening? What are the odds of this happening? There are legit betting lines that you can hop on in certain places for Curt Cignetti to be the next head coach of the Penn State Nittany Lions. So I'm going to throw this to you from the Penn State perspective. You've already mentioned he's one of, if not the first phone call that Penn State makes. But what do you think the odds are that Penn State can make this happen and make Curt Cignetti the next head coach in Happy Valley?
Pretty fair, because Penn State's going to have to make Curt Cignetti say no. It's not just, we're going to be passive, right? Penn State don't make this move lightly. They fired James Franklin and are willing to pay him around $50 million not to coach another game for them because they want to win national titles. Well, if Curt Cignetti can do this, and again, we're going to debate this in the upcoming segment, because in my belief, if Curt Cignetti can do this at Indiana, imagine what he can do at Penn State. So, I'm already starting to throw my jabs, but I think the odds are fair because Penn State is going to be persistent. They are going to call Curt Cignetti. We'll talk about what happens if this doesn't happen for the Nittany Lions, because I'm eager to see, I feel like the sky is falling if Indiana loses Curt Cignetti. With that being said, odds are good because I think Cignetti and Indiana have such a good relationship, but Penn State, hey, we'll bump up your salary. We'll give raises to your staff members. We'll give you more staff members. We'll get you more analysts. We'll get you whatever you need, because resources are not going to be a problem at Penn State. And that's what I've heard, despite the buyout, because I came from the frame of mind that, hey, Penn State's going to have to cut back on NIL and all this stuff, or they're going to have to be really conscious of how they spend money. It doesn't sound like it. So it is full force ahead. Go get the candidate that is at the top of your list, which is Curt Cignetti, and make him say no. So that means increased salary for not only him, staff members, the lifetime contract, so to speak. Cignetti would get the guarantees that, hey, if you want to be here for 5 years, if you want to be here for 10 years, you get the contract that you want. So that's what it's going to take from Penn State. And I mean, Cignetti's proven that, I wouldn't go for the end all be all, but he certainly deserves a lot of resources and a lot of help.
Yeah, and from the Indiana side of it and from the Cignetti side of it, I mean, you bring up salaries and resources and things, but I go back to the idea that at Indiana, they've given him all that, right? He's a top 20 paid coach in the country, making over $8 million a year. Bryant Haynes, your defensive coordinator, who proved last Saturday against Oregon he's one of the best in the nation, he's making $2 million a year, which I know Jim Knowles making more than that. But then you have your offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan, whose salary just went from $800K to over $1 million a year. So Indiana's paying some pretty competitive numbers in terms of the head coach and the coaching staff. It's just the idea that I just don't know if it makes sense for Cignetti to leave a place that he's already built in a year and a half. Why would you just dip out and say, well, this was fun, but I'm going to go somewhere else and see if I can do it? He just doesn't give off that vibe to me. I mean, he's somebody that has done it the right way. He's worked his way through the ranks. And now that he has his first big opportunity, I just think he's going to want to hang around and see what this thing can become. And I don't think he coaches for the next 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, he's in his mid-60s now, right? You're talking about somebody that isn't going to do it forever. This isn't a Dan Lanning or a Kenny Dillingham type of situation where you hire somebody for the next 25 years. I don't know why Cignetti would want to start over again. And for the Penn State side of it, I don't know why you would go hire somebody that isn't a temp hire, but it's not a 20, 25-year solution. Maybe they're just in win now mode. I don't know.
Well, I have an idea for that. Okay. Mike Shanahan seems like a good head coach in waiting. That would be the perfect transition if you keep again, and because I've thought about this, why bring in a coach like Urban Meyer? Why bring in a coach like Ed Orgeron or try to convince Nick Saban? I think those are off the wall hires unless that's a 2 to 3 year plan. And then you get, the understudy, the mentee to take over for that coach. Just get him to stabilize everything for 2 to 3 years, give him what you want, and then let that superstar, rising star, potential head coach, Mike Shanahan or Brian Haynes, right? Both of them, I think, are future head coaches. So that's something that Indiana consider. It's something that everybody should consider, whether Cignetti stays at Indiana or moves on, because I think Mike Shanahan or Brian Haynes would be optional, or they would be optional coaching candidates for Penn State if they want to move beyond Cignetti. Mike Shanahan in particular, because offense has just been such a struggle for the Nittany Lions. So now let's talk that through, right? If it does happen, if it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, for Indiana, if it does happen, yeah, it's devastating. I mean, it's awful. Just a shot through the heart. Everything that you've lived through the past year and a half, the greatest year and a half in the history of the program. It's been awesome, but it's just it's devastating, right? And I think Indiana has proven, again, with all the money and facilities and buy-in, you could go get another big-time head coach, and eventually you're going to have to do it. But man, you just don't want to lose somebody who's proven to be one of the best in the game. If it doesn't happen, then nothing changes. Even if you do pay the man a little bit more money, who just got a pay raise, fine. Do what you got to do. Keep him in Bloomington and don't let him get away.
Yeah, I say that either way, Curt Cignetti and his friends, the coaching staff, all benefit here. It will, whether it's a salary increase or more NIL or more guarantees or the statue. How could you give up the statue? Everybody benefits it when a job like Penn State opens. It's not only Cignetti. Mike Elko is going to get a raise. Somebody else is going to get a raise to try and prevent Penn State from and then it's the domino effect that this creates. If Penn State doesn't get Cignetti, and again, if you and I have to make a prediction right now in the middle of October 2025. I don't think it happens. And I don't think you think it happens either.
I don't either.
Indiana is very serious, and they haven't been passive like, oh, well, maybe if you prove it. They're like, no, we'll give you everything you need to help us out. Tom Allen crawled over broken glass so that Curt Cignetti could succeed at Indiana. So true. I personally don't think it happens, even though I think the likelihood is fair, because again, Penn State's going to make it so you have to say no if you're Cignetti. But with that being said, if it doesn't happen, I mean, Penn State's just going to move on down the list. Again, Mike Elko is going to get a call. Manny Diaz is going to get a call. If it's somebody like Mike Elko that you get Cignetti to say no, but you get Mike Elko to say yes, shockwaves all across college football, because then it means another big fish is eating a little fish. Texas A&M is going to go and get the coach. It's like, man, okay, we just got Penn State just poached our coach. We got to go get somebody just as good. Who knows better, right? Mike Elko is one of the top coaches in college football right now. Holy moly, we didn't think this was going to happen.
Right.
But it is going to send, and then Texas A&M is going to take somebody's staff, and then somebody else is going to take somebody else's staff. And it's just this trickle down effect throughout college football. So that's what's going to happen one way or another, especially if Penn State gets a Curt Cignetti or a Mike Elko. It's not going to be as apparent if Manny Diaz happens to move on, but I would say the big fish of Matt Rhule, Mike Elko, or Curt Cignetti will send absolute shockwaves and create this massive domino effect if that move was to actually happen.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits. However, I want to bet in the moment with player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Matt Rhule talks about Penn State. He did not tell you what you wanted to hear.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Coming off of a Monday press conference for Matt Rhule, we thought it would be interesting and different, and it was. Matt Rhule had to field some questions about his alma mater opening up as a job, and the first words out of his mouth were, "I love Penn State."
Just what Nebraska fans wanted to hear, right? Yeah.
Does not give you the full picture. But he played it relatively close to the vest on any potential interest that he might have in that job, and also during the press conference, he was asked about some things that could be done here, basically to make it more enticing to stay, which was fascinating, and he had some thoughts on that predictably as well. So just another Monday here in Nebraska.
Yeah, we are in it now, man. Like, the stuff has arrived. Like, you were waiting for 6 games for some real Nebraska football. I don't know, whatever it is that we've experienced for the last 10 years, 20 years. It's been relatively drama-free, and here we are. Did not see October 15th rolling around, and for us to be deep in a conversation about whether Matt Rhule was going to leave Nebraska in the next 2 months. But here we are. He spent the first 9 minutes of his Monday press conference talking about the firing of James Franklin and then his potential candidacy at Penn State as a replacement. And I think there was a sentiment from some Nebraska fans who believed that Matt Rhule was going to walk into the room, stride up to the podium on Monday, and say, "Count me out. I'm not interested in that. I'm all in on Nebraska. I want to be at this place until the day that I retire." And that was never going to happen.
Nope.
That's not the way it works in this business. That's not the way it works when your alma mater's job opens and it's Penn State. I don't even care if it's Penn State. I don't even care if his buddy is the athletic director there and they've worked together and all of this stuff that ties him back. It's not even that. It's just that if you are a head coach and you are savvy, and this is the situation that you find yourself in, you do not shut things off on day one. And Matt Rhule certainly did not. Why don't we just get right to what you teased at the beginning here? He was asked what Nebraska needed to do to compete at the highest level, because he said in his comments after talking about Penn State and how much love he had for Penn State and Pat Kraft, that he also loves Troy Dannon and has a great relationship with Troy Dannon and absolutely loves Nebraska. He said love like 9 times in his 9 or 10 minutes discussing this subject. So lots of love from Matt Rhule on Monday, that going out in multiple directions. And then he said that Nebraska needs to certainly step up in, not the school, but areas around the school need to step up in order to make Nebraska the best version of Nebraska that it can be. Let's go ahead and play those comments right now.
Unabashed. We can't always worry about the optics of everything. Like, it's a really hard time in higher education. There's cuts, there's all these different things, but we're athletics here is a separate entity. Like, we're not taking money from the university. And so the schools that invest, Dan Lanning had a great quote. I mean, when Oklahoma State, he said, he said, we're investing to win. And that's just players, right? And so, there's, in a world of like $30 and $40 million rosters, which isn't going away, I'd like us to do the same thing. And there's sort of like hey, that's not really the Nebraska way. And I'd like it to be. I'd like to invest. I'd like to be at the front of everything. Like, weren't we one of the first teams to ever do training table? And weren't we one of the first teams to ever do like academic support? And weren't we one of the first teams to do AstroTurf, at the time Field Turf? And weren't we one of the first teams to have a jumbo board? But now, like, now we're talking about stadium, and everyone's like, didn't they build the Memorial Stadium faster than they built the Capitol? Like, we've invested. We have a history here of being at the forefront and investing, and I just don't want to stop that. I just want to be the absolute best at it.
It's a great quote. It's most certainly a call to action, I think, for whoever needs to hear it around Nebraska's football program and around the state. It's the key line in there was, there's always been this, that's not, Nebraska has not been a state, it's the culture of the state. It's not a state that it's maybe a state that has money, but it's not a state that shows off the fact that it has money. With its money, it doesn't buy Cadillacs and whatever. That's a really dated reference by now, but you get the point. Like, it doesn't buy frivolous items. It buys stuff that works for them. And I think what Matt Rhule is trying to tell people is like, let's show everyone that we have the ability to do this at Nebraska. Let's put it into our roster. Let's make this big giant stadium. Let's do all these things because we can. I think they can. I think he thinks there's some untapped, resources out there.
It's some of that. It's some of what you're saying, untapped resources. And then I also think it's what you said, an attitude about spending.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a politically charged word to say conservative or fiscally conservative. And it's a benefit to Nebraska that it is the one athletic department in the Big Ten that is in the black, that makes a profit annually, that is not in debt. And
we don't ask for money.
And that's great. Nebraska cannot continue to operate in a way that's different from other schools and expect to get the same kind of results. If the last 20 plus years have not shown that to the people who control the purse strings in this state and at the university, and I won't say the athletic department because the athletic department spends the money that it gets. Donors, politicians, regents, all the way up to the governor. If they think that Nebraska can continue to operate in the same way that it has with how it's allocated resources and continue to strive to match Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and the SEC programs, then they're not hearing his message. And unless they want to change some of that, unless they want to be more aggressive, if they choose not to change some of that, then it's very likely they may lose their coach. If not right here, then another time when he gets frustrated because Nebraska is not doing all that Nebraska can do for Nebraska athletics.
Right. And that would be an
some people are not going to want to hear that, but that's the reality of the situation in 2025.
Well, I think some of it is a test too, right? For Rhule. Cause like, I think he sees this as somewhat of a, he's a smart, savvy business guy too. Like, that's why he didn't shut anything down today. That's why he didn't come out and say, I'm never going to go to Penn State, because number one, he knows that's, he can't know that that's the truth. And number two, because
even if he did,
there's cards to play. And this, I think, is one of them. So, we'll see what the hustle and bustle is like for the right people to get in the right rooms and say, here's what we need to do in order to show that we are capable of doing this, and those people in charge who have not done this way for a very, very long time, they decide, is this the coach? Is this the situation? Is this the time to change this decades long, centuries long sort of like thought process? It's fascinating. Like, it's because it's a core thing in the state. I'm not saying it's an issue, because I think a lot of people, they tell you like, this is the way Nebraska is and we like it here. We like to get stuff done. We like to get our elbows dirty and we like to do it the hard way and stuff like that. And Rhule's saying like, all right, well, if that's the case, then just know it's going to be really, really difficult to expect us to be Ohio State. It's really going to be difficult for us to be Oregon. Oregon has a never-ending waterfall of money called Phil Knight and Nike. And Nebraska is looking for their waterfall. They're looking for it.
Nebraska has beaten the Ohio States of the world in its history by being Nebraska. This is not 1995. If you think that Nebraska's version of business as usual is going to win into the next decade, it's not. So he's talking to donors when he says the things that he does in referencing Dan Lanning about the $30 to $40 million roster and going out and investing in players. And then I think he's referencing as we said, leaders in the state.
Yep.
And there has been discord. There has been there have been agendas that have held Nebraska back. And like the fact that all of this is coming into focus and is coming to the surface here as this discussion matures, I think is overdue. We talked about this some like in a veiled way when Trev Alberts left, and there was a perception, which that I believe was correct, that Trev was frustrated with some of the red tape that prevented Nebraska from committing resources in the way that he wanted to see them committed on his stadium project. Rhule referenced the stadium again. The fact that he said the word optics in that answer should not be lost on anyone, because that's the same word that Troy Dannon used in explaining why Nebraska's stadium project was being put on hold. It's right there in front of you if you make decisions in the state of Nebraska about how resources are allocated, and you can act or you can not act, and you may or may not lose your coach.
We talked about it before, but like, I don't know how many times did I hear it from, people who just casually follow Nebraska football in the state, not like, or in it day to day, like we are listeners of this podcast, but maybe you'll hear it from one of your family members and they'll say like, how is it possible? Or tell me, could you explain this to me, sports guy? Could you explain to me why they're cutting academic programs across the university and they're cutting $30 million worth of budget, and yet the football locker room is gold plated with golden toilets and iPads in the showers and stuff like that? I'm like, yeah, I actually can explain this to you. And what Rhule is saying is that thought process has been happening too long in the state. You need to just tell those people this is not that. These are not the same piles of money that we're looking at. And it's vitally important to the success of the state, to the growth of the state and the growth of the football program and the university for it to be really successful at football. That's the start. And that's how you do it.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, Luke, I know you and I talk about this every single year when we do this. This rivalry, it means a lot to a lot of people, right? This rivalry is your favorite. Tennessee and Alabama, third Saturday in October. Why for you is this one bigger than the Iron Bowl?
First of all, I'm going to go ahead and make an admission that it's not. I grew up very close to Auburn.
Okay,
I grew up very close to Auburn. So, I mean, I love the Tennessee. I'll say this. I don't hate Tennessee the way other Alabama fans do. That may get me fired from Locked On Bama. I respect it more. I don't like the Philip Fulmer era. I mean, and what went on there. But I'm kind of cool with the Alabama-Tennessee thing. I know it gets nasty from time to time. I've been in Knoxville sometimes when, wasn't treated. I'm sure some other people have been to Tuscaloosa and the same thing. But I like this game more than the Iron Bowl. The Iron Bowl has such a personal, deep meaning to me. But I enjoy this game. I was there in 89. You might not have been born. I was there in 89 when Saran Stacy exploded, as Brett Musburger put it. I went in 1988, back when Tennessee was, I think they were 0-5, and we beat them to make it 0-6. They didn't lose again until the next year when they played Alabama in Legion Field, and they had Reggie Cobb and Chuck Webb. And Reggie Cobb had gotten in trouble, so Webb was the only running back they had. But they had dudes everywhere. I was there in 94, and 95, I think it was, when Peyton led the band. I've been to a lot of these games and a lot of games in Knoxville too. And to me, this game is just more college football. Like the Iron Bowl has such a deep-seated thing for me because I grew up so close to Auburn and ended up at Alabama. But the third Saturday in October is always like the middle of the college football season, and is when things really start to take shape. And I think, Bear Bryant and General Neyland always took this game so seriously. It feels like it's not as much of a rivalry because what Nick Saban did. I mean, Nick Saban went a long time and created a wide gap in the all-time series, but this game is always a ton of fun. It's always had some spectacular moments.
Well, look at my lead right there. I just get shot down. I thought you said last year on our crossover that this was your favorite rivalry, but again, you had a lot of respect for it and you love it.
Let me say this. Outside of the Iron Bowl is like a different stratosphere to me.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a different thing. Outside of that, it's my favorite rivalry, 100%.
Yeah. Should be a good one this week, and you're right. I mean, it kind of felt like it wasn't. I mean, this series has always been streaky one way or the other. It's never gone to the magnitude of 15 straight, which was what Nick Saban had against Tennessee up until 2022, and since 2022, it's been 2-2. It's been split a little bit, so I guess it's been 2-2 since Josh Heupel's been here. So 21, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's math. But Tennessee hadn't won on the road in this rivalry since 2003. So a lot on the line, no doubt. College football playoffs, you're right. I mean, this is kind of the midway through the college football season. A big win, of course. Alabama's already got a big win over Georgia. This would be a big signature win for Tennessee in terms of a college football playoff push. Kind of looking at these two teams to date, I'll let you talk on Alabama here in a moment because I know Alabama's playing really good football right now. Tennessee's playing good football as well. You're a missed field goal away from being undefeated, beating Georgia in overtime, and said you missed that field goal, you go to overtime and you lose. Tennessee's offense is explosive, just like everybody thought it was going to be whenever you lost Dylan Sampson and Nico Iamaleava darted for the portal, and you lost 4 starters on the offensive line, and you turned over your wide receiver room, and just like everybody predicted that midway through the season, Tennessee would be leading the SEC in offense. But it's been fun, man. Tennessee's run the football well. Joey Aguilar has been better than anyone could possibly imagine. This offensive line has been better. Explosive wide receivers. So it's been good to kind of get back to an offense that Josh Heupel's kind of known for. Defensively, it's kind of been weird, right? Tennessee had such an elite defense a season ago. Clearly, that's not the case. They've been battered, bruised, injured, missed a ton of starters, up until this point in the season. But it is what it is, right? They've gotten thrown all over. They've been run all over. Scoring defense is a little bit skewed because I don't like that stat because I think it's different. But nonetheless, Tennessee's defense is one of the nation leaders in sacks, top 10 in TFLs, nation leaders in defensive touchdowns, nation leaders in takeaways. I mean, this defense, for all that it gives, it's so opportunistic. So it kind of makes you feel like you're going to be in any game no matter what. And I expect Tennessee certainly to be in this football game with a chance to win it down there in Tuscaloosa. So that's kind of a look at Tennessee. Maybe not the defense you'd expect at this point in the season, but a defense that creates takeaways, an offense that's explosive, and it's been a fun brand of football, no doubt. Alabama, everybody was writing the obituaries after the loss to Florida State. Since then, 3 straight SEC wins, and Alabama, pretty good football team, Luke.
They're a lot of fun. I just went to the Missouri game, and you could tell those were 2 really good football teams. Now, the funny thing to me, once you started running down your description of Tennessee, I kept thinking, yeah, that sounds a lot like us. Who would have thought at this point in the season, Joey Aguilar and Ty Simpson, I think they're the best 2 quarterbacks in the league right now. I mean, certainly better than Garrett Nussmeier and Lenoris Sellers and DJ Lagway, who everybody thought were going to be the guys. And Mateer, who looked sharp at first, but of course with the hand injury and then the way he looked at Texas, I mean, Ty Simpson's leading some of these Heisman polls, and Joey Aguilar should at least be in the discussion. That they only are separated by 2 yards of passing through 6 games. I mean, they have the most yards passing. They're number 1 and number 2, and Aguilar has 2 more yards passing than does Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson has 2 more touchdowns and 4 fewer interceptions. But again, a lot of similarities. I think they both got a bunch of Frisbee catching dogs at wide receiver. They both have defenses that at times you kind of wonder, like, what are we doing? And then other times they make magic happen. I mean, Alabama specifically, it seems like every time we play somebody, Florida State, for instance, they scored on their first drive. Vanderbilt scored on their first drive. Missouri this past week scored on their first drive. And the first thing you want to do is say, Kane Womack, what's going on? And then the next thing you know, the defense is coming up with some huge stops late in the game, and they make some adjustments and things get fixed. They may give up some yards, but in the end, they've been helping Alabama a lot, and they've been getting better, and I think Tennessee is too.